Hello, welcome back to Feelings You Can Trust with Dominique Davis. I am Dominique Davis, and on this podcast, we discuss how to build lives that we love. All right, let's talk about this week. I live in Mooresville, North Carolina, which is a suburb of Charlotte, North Carolina. And if you've been living under a rock, then you are not aware that ICE agents have been in Charlotte causing absolute mayhem. And it's really tragic. It's really tragic. It's tragic that families are being torn apart. It's tragic that people are afraid to go to work and to go to the grocery store. It's tragic that as a country, we cannot agree on the foundational opinion that every person deserves human rights, despite whether they are a citizen or not. And it's all very disappointing. I, I'm disappointed by the reaction I'm seeing from a lot of people on social media. I do try to remind myself that social media is not real, and a lot of the activity we see on social media are bots. I do try to stay aware of that. But still, when you see people posting big or small, deport them all, or round them up, it's like, whoa, there are no demons in hell. They're all here. So that's how I feel about that. I am just ready for it to be over. I want these people to be out of Charlotte. And I just never thought in my lifetime I would observe an event. And it's a long event, right? Because ICE is going to different parts of the country. But I never thought I would observe an event where the trauma that was being created is going to take generations to heal. I just thought as a human race we were past that, but looks like we are always going to be in the mood to ruin somebody's life. So there's that. That's how I feel. We are starting off this podcast real strong. The thing that's really important to me about the evolution of my brand and the evolution of who I am is that my audience understands that social justice is the number one pillar of everything, behind everything that I do. And shying away from certain subjects or pretending that some things are not happening, that's not who I am on camera or off camera. And I want to be as authentic as I can, especially as I navigate my way through school and to potentially becoming a therapist. Speaking of school, still going through finals. I know I said finals week, but it's really like I'm in school online, so different classes have different final weeks. So it's really a long event. But this week I'm finishing up a class and we had to write a cultural identity paper and talk about the theories that are most relevant to our personal identity. And the two theories that I chose were critical race theory and social constructionist theory. Critical race theory has several different tenets, but the one that really struck out to me was the statement, the concept that racism is, or the permanence of racism, which means that the racism that we experience is not just in social interactions, it's in our institutions and it's in the fabric of our society. So it's everywhere and in everything, and that includes, internalized racism and understanding that it's in the media and that it's just everywhere at different varying degrees. Because hearing that validated me. And I think that as a Black woman, I have had to constantly gaslight myself and say, well, that isn't racist, because I would tell myself certain spaces were safe because I wanted them to be safe. But you really do see, a couple podcasts ago, we talked about eugenics. You really do see how everything in Western society is based on proximity to whiteness. And understanding that helps me understand how I can heal from that mindset and more fully be myself. And then that goes into social constructionist theory, where I can more deeply understand why I have certain ideas about myself and understand what I want to keep and what I want to throw away because it does not serve me. Everything in culture isn't bad, but a lot of stuff does not work for the greater good. All right, let's move on to what am I reading? I told you guys last week I started Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before by Julie Smith, and I am really, really enjoying it. I'm also reading Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover, and I gotta tell ya, I think I'm about 60 pages in. I just started it yesterday, and I gotta tell ya, I've never felt so bad for a protagonist so soon in a book. Oh my goodness, I feel so bad for her. She breaks my heart. But yes, I'm reading Reminders of Him because I believe that there will be a movie coming out in September, and I really want to see it. I am here for this renaissance of books becoming movies because I just feel like books becoming movies really held us together as a society in the late 90s and early 2000s. Shout out to Nicholas Sparks. So I think that it's good because as long as the people keep reading, whether it is fiction or nonfiction, as long as the people keep reading and as long as we are encouraging the youth to read and we keep reading relevant, we will have a fighting chance. So I'm all about the renaissance. So go Colleen Hoover. I know that, people have different opinions of her skill and like her storytelling, and I get it, but sometimes you just need a fluffy book. Sometimes you just need, and this isn't necessarily the fluffiest book, but it's also not the darkest either. I don't know. I haven't gotten there yet. We'll see. All right, so that's what I am reading. Moving on to listener letters. I am just letting you guys know I have the intention to start doing listener letters. If you are interested in sending me a letter, you can send a letter to feelingsyoucantrust@gmail.com. I'm going to do a few episodes of the podcast just letting you guys know that it's an intention, and I'm just going to see the demand. You email me your questions, whether you want me to give advice or if you just want to know my ideas about a certain concept, including anything from like femininity to Christianity to religion as a whole or whatever. If you want to know my perspective, go ahead and email me. I would be so happy to connect with you and answer a question. Before we get into the topic, we have to go over the framework to building a life that you love. The framework is a 5-step process that I created. The first part of this process is getting out of survival. The second step of the process is organizing and decluttering your mind. The third step is visualizing. The fourth step is taking action. The fifth step, we rinse and we repeat. Today's topic has to do with taking action. We made it to our first taking action episode. I believe that the majority of manifesting culture and content is all about taking action, but I am just a really, really deep believer that there's so much internal work that has to be done before you do the things, or else when you do the things, the root of the intention behind the action, it doesn't always align with the person that you want to be. So let's talk finally about taking action today. Now, because this is the first podcast on taking action, I want to start small. And when I say small, what I mean is it's a very simple concept. Now, will the action feel small? Absolutely not. This is life-changing stuff. If you do the first 3 steps and then you get to action and you start to take action from the place of being confident that you have done the work in the first 3 steps, any action you take has the potential to be earth-shattering, life-changing. So when I say we're going to start small, I mean with the simplicity behind the concept, but actually doing the action, it's a big deal. And when you hear what I explain, if you say to yourself, I know I need to do this, but I am not ready, that's just a little self reassurance that you need to spend more time on the first three steps, which is okay because you're always going to come back to the first three steps. Because remember, we rinse and repeat. It's a cycle. So if you feel like you're not ready, you can always go back and see where you want to spend a little bit more time. The first episode that we have about action is going to be about trimming the fat, recognizing what is in your life that does not support you creating a life that you love, and then taking action to energetically distance yourself. This can be easy and simple. So, for example, I was sitting in my sunroom the other day and I was just like, I don't know. I feel like something needs to change. I don't know. I want to change something. And I looked at my bookshelf and I saw some books that I loved and I saw some books that I have read and like wasn't really crazy about. I saw manuals that I've read that I wasn't really crazy about the methods in them. I saw a lot of literature that I have outgrown. So I sat on the floor completely unprompted. My daughter came in and was like, Mom, what are you doing? But I sat on the floor and I just started taking all the books off the bookshelf and separating the books by author, genre, what's going to Fred and June's, which is my local used bookstore, and what is going to Value Village. I just started to separate everything. And then when I put the books back on the shelf, the books that I decided that I was going to keep, oh my goodness, the feeling of alignment, being able to sit in my chair, look at my bookshelf, and everything I'm looking at on that bookshelf I loved, not a feeling like it. And that's a metaphor, right? Like everything's a metaphor for life. That's a metaphor for the action that we can take in our personal lives so that everywhere we look in our personal life, we see something that we love. In the same breath, if we want to keep it simple just to start, you can also clean out your closet, right? You can also clean out your music library, going through your belongings and seeing what you own, what is in your vicinity that doesn't align with the life that you are building. A lot of us, we have closets filled with pieces that we will never wear again, and pieces that subconsciously remind us of times in our lives that we don't really want to sit in. Maybe we've healed from it, but we want to move on from it. And it's hard to do that when you have pieces of clothing that remind you of those times in your life. And this is by no means me saying go out and buy a new wardrobe. This is not about consumerism. I'm a big thrifter. I'm really big on going to the thrift store and getting new pieces to replace old ones, one at a time. This is not about consumerism. I'm not telling you to go out and buy a new wardrobe. But what I am telling you to do is to be aware of what is in your closet and understanding how what you own makes you feel. So if there is a piece of clothing that either reminds you of a time in your life that you don't necessarily love, or there's a piece of clothing that maybe it's designer and you paid a lot of money for it, but it doesn't look good on you and it doesn't make you feel good about your body. There can be different reasons, but perhaps there are pieces of clothing in your closet that do not support you building a life that you love. I think that music is such a good example because music impacts our mood. Music impacts our thought process and our belief system, because when you listen to a song over and over, it's programming and you can't escape it. You can't say, oh, I'm too strong-willed to be programmed by music. No, you're not. It's how the brain works. If you listen to something over and over and over again, your brain starts to be programmed. So when it comes to our music libraries, being aware of what we're listening to, I'm smiling because I'm just like, I'm guilty of this. What we're listening to because we listened to it in college, because we listened to it when we were in the height of our youth. But maybe the message in the music and the delivery does not necessarily serve us building a life that we love. Or maybe taking more time to add to your music library, adding music that supports you becoming the person who can maintain the life that you love. I have always really liked Leanne LaHavis, and I've been seeing, I believe her name is Olivia Dean everywhere, but I was just like, I don't know. I tend not to jump on bandwagons, but The Man I Need, I think that's the name of the song. I gave it a listen, and I was like, oh, this is wonderful. So I added her album to my library, and it has just been, I've listened to it like once a day, and it has been uplifting my life. And I get excited to listen to the album because it's just so high vibrational. Even her sad songs are high vibrational. So yeah, music library is a wonderful way to take action to start inching your way closer to building a life that you love. Okay, so that was the easy stuff. We are going to discuss two different parts of your life where you can take action in a way that can support you living a life that you love. We are going to discuss how to take action within your social reality, and then we're going to talk about how to take action within the realm of your purpose. Okay. So let's start with talking about how to take action within your social reality. The number one question that we want to ask ourselves about the people in our lives when we are intentionally building a life that we love is, how does this person make me feel? How does this person make me feel? I do hope that we are all at a maturity level that we can understand when we have people in our lives who challenge us versus people in our lives who are just genuinely unsupportive. Being able to tell the difference, because we always want to have individuals in our lives who challenge us and see our potential even when we don't see it ourselves. When we talk about the people in your life supporting you building the life that you love, please understand and be weary of the mindset that a person will fit in your life dependent on their identity. That is immature thinking, looking at friendship as if alignment comes from aesthetic. I have learned that in order to have a community, I have to put down my expectations of how my friends are supposed to show up and simply recognize how they make me feel. I have learned that when you choose aesthetic over authentic connection, you tend to have a bunch of friends who look the same, as well as a level of superficiality that comes with those friendships, because you did not become friends with them based on how they stimulated your mind or how they made you feel. You became friends with them because you thought that they would fit. And that is not what friendship is built on. That is not what love is built on. When finding a romantic partner, a lot of us go into dating looking for someone who will fit, not recognizing how that person makes us feel. When you mature, your ability to sense ulterior motives and dishonesty, they refine. And a lot of us are ignoring our developed senses in order to hold on to people just because they look the part. When it comes to taking action, I encourage you to sit down. That's the action. Sit down and ask yourself, how do these people make me feel? Do I feel good? Do I feel safe? Do I feel inspired? Do I feel excited? Or do I feel like I'm lacking? Do I feel like I'm not good enough? Do I feel like the race is long and I might never win? Do I feel suspicious? Do I feel tired consistently? Of course, when we do this, we might recognize that we are the problem, and you have to have space in your mind and your heart for the fact that you might be the problem, because you might be the problem. But we can't know the truth until we understand how the people in our lives make us feel. If we recognize that all of our friends make us feel bad, that gives us the ability to say, okay, so what part do I play in this? Because I'm the one who attracted all these people. And then we can start to see the conversation from a place of honesty. I would also evaluate their mindset when it comes to attracting people who support you building the life that you love. Do your friends, does your partner, Do they have a fixed mindset or do they have a growth mindset? Everyone in your life does not have to have a growth mindset. Everyone in your life will not have a growth mindset. That is not a reason to end a friendship. I would say that that is a reason to end a romantic relationship, but who am I? I'm just a girl with a podcast. But when a person has a fixed mindset, which is a mindset that is rooted in tradition and current understandings versus a growth mindset, which is rooted in the understanding that people, places, and things are always evolving. If you have a romantic partner that has a fixed mindset, I believe that relationships are dependent on growth and growing together. It is rare, if not never occurred, that two people get together and they are the perfect versions of themselves. But in order to maintain a relationship and to keep on going, you got to keep on growing. Yeah, I made that up. I'm sure someone else has said it before. But yes, so evaluating whether the people in your life have a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. Like I said, everyone doesn't have to have a growth mindset, but if you want to build a life that you love, most people have to have a growth mindset. Furthermore, there should be a fraction of your relationships that have a growth mindset that competes or surpasses yours. People in your life who are more driven than you, who have bigger goals than you, who scare you a little bit. I would highly recommend attracting and maintaining relationships with people who have dreams that make you realize that you want to put a little more pressure on the gas. That is what gives you momentum. And on the days where you might be feeling a little bit fixed yourself, like you don't know where you're going to go, it's those friendships that can motivate you and can make you excited to do more and to believe more and to have more faith that this life that you love is coming to fruition. Are they a hater? You could have some people in your life who have a fixed mindset. You cannot have anybody in your life who is a hater. They got to go. They got to go. And that's the action you got to take today. Maturing is realizing that you do not have to announce your departure. Maturing is realizing that you don't have to sit a person down and be like, I noticed when I said that I got a promotion, you rolled your eyes, and I want to unpack that. Y'all, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that because you don't know everything. I don't know everything. And when we see that someone is a hater, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. But give them the 2 times. Give them the 2 times. And if it's a pattern, recognize it. But that being said, that's how it made you feel. You don't have to sit people down. I'm talking to a past version of myself. You don't have to sit people down and try to bring them to the same understanding of what a good person with a fulfilled life looks like. Because their definition of that is clearly very different, very different. If you're hating on your friends, then your idea of happiness is very different than mine. And it's often a way longer road than we anticipate. We think we're going to fix the friendship with one conversation, and we have to realize that behaviors are symptoms of personality. So if certain behaviors start to make you recognize that that person is a hater, it's in their personality. So you don't have to save them. And you can still love them. I don't believe that just because someone offends you, you have to stop loving them. But taking action means a lot of us, we have best friends who are haters, right? I don't. I used to have a few. But because they're your best friend, you have muscle memory, or God forbid a partner. God forbid your partner is your biggest God forbid. I pray that that is not the situation for you. But if it is, the action that you're going to take is recognizing when your brain says, I miss this person, I'm going to call them. Or when that person calls you, immediately picking, and you immediately pick up. The action that you're taking is not calling them when your body says, I want to talk to them. When they call, not picking up the phone and sending a cute little, hey, I'm busy right now. Can I reach back out to you when I have a little time? And yeah, you can reach out when you have a little time. But learning how to not be so reactive to the relationships that do not foster you building a life that you love, especially if the person doesn't like you. Especially if the person doesn't like you. Because sometimes people don't like us, especially when we commit ourselves to building lives that we love. Because they didn't work on steps 1 through 3. They have their own things. They have their own things that have convinced them that they can't build lives that they love. So now they're mad at you. And that's not your fault and it's not your problem. But learning how to create energetic distance between you and people who really don't like you, but they pretend that they do for some reason. That's a whole nother video that I'm not going to make because I'm sure there are plenty out there. Understanding how to level up, because ultimately that's a level up. When you recognize that one of your friends is a hater or your partner is a hater, and you start to take actions to energetically separate yourself and not have the same relationship with them, the very relationship that made them so comfortable to be so open about hating on you, when you learn how to level up past that, and not from a place of hate, not from a place of anger, not from a place of aggravation, but just from a place of understanding that that's where they are. And it does not support where you are going. My sister says this all the time. Shout out Crystal. Everybody can't come with you. Everybody cannot come with you, and you are building a life that you love. And certain people belong in that reality with you, and certain people don't, and you don't want them there because they do not like you. Okay, so how can we trim the fat when it comes to purpose and living lives that support our purpose and support our purpose flowering, blooming into helping us build a life that we love? Because I find that purpose often starts as a small little seed, and this has been my life story. It starts as a small little seed, and then the more life experience you get, the more you understand how to water and nurture that seed, and it starts to grow, and the action steps are laid out for you divinely. You don't even got to figure it out. All you got to do is keep showing up. But in order for purpose to bloom, we have to trim some fat. What I mean by that is we practice awareness throughout our days, from the moment we wake up until the moment we go to sleep. And we ask ourselves honestly and genuinely, am I building a life that I love with every action I take? Throughout my day, what am I doing that supports me building a life that I love? What am I doing that does not align with me building a life that I love? And the action comes not only in recognizing, but also in choosing to not do the things that push you away from the life that you love. We are here to build lives that we love. I know you're so tired of saying it, but I'm going to keep saying it so it can get into your noggin. That's what we are here for, to build lives that we love. So you might not like hearing that you need to stop doing the stuff that does not align with you building a life that you love, but that's what we're here to talk about, and that's what we're here for. Now, of course, there are reasons why we consistently self-sabotage and we consistently do things that do not align, but that is for us to figure out with our journal. That is for us to figure out with our therapist, and that is for us to figure out with God, if you so choose. But you gotta stop. You gotta stop. You gotta stop. And sometimes stopping is not something that we do in a day. Sometimes stopping is not something we do in a year. But can you make the choice, and can you take the action to start learning how to stop? What are you doing throughout your day? If you want to be an entrepreneur, are you waking up at 11 a.m. or are you waking up at 5 a.m.? Hey. I'm just saying. We all have the same hours in a day as Beyonce. I think that was the saying. We all have the same hours in a day. If you want to capitalize on your time, you got to get up earlier, right? If you want a high-paying job, are you in these streets networking? Are you intentionally using your relationships to figure out how you want to navigate your way into a sustainable career? Or are you treating every relationship as if it's insubstantial? Hey, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Going through with a fine tooth comb the way you approach your daily actions and understanding what part of you is in alignment with your purpose and what part of you is in alignment with sabotaging your purpose. And then learning, because once you recognize it, you can't unsee it. I think a lot of the rose colored glasses come from avoiding thinking about it. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. So then it becomes all about learning how to recognize when you're leaning into actions that do not support your purpose and saying, no, thank you. I'm growing out of that. I am growing out of that. And I believe that you can. I have faith in you. I have faith in you. I don't think I yapped as much on this one as I have on the other ones. Like I said, this is a pretty simple concept. It's pretty simple. Doing it is not as simple, but the concept is very simple. So, I didn't have to yap for as long, but that's the podcast. I hope that you enjoyed it because I enjoyed making it. Please remember, listener letters, maybe a part of this podcast made you say, I have a question. Email me the question, feelingsyoucantrust@gmail.com. I am so grateful to you for listening. I am sending love, prayers, and just mutual disgust to those who are suffering at the hands of this administration. Look, I could not imagine what it feels like to go outside and know that at any moment my family could be torn apart and I could be taken to a place and not see my family ever again. I don't know what that feels like. So I am mutually disgusted with this administration for you. Yeah, you guys just be nice. Just be nice to people. Be nice to people today and tomorrow and the day after. Just be nice. Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening. I love you lots, and I will see you next Monday. Bye.